This is Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations. Come for the craft beer, bourbon, whiskey, and great drinks. Stay for the conversations. Here's your host, Jonathan Green.
The calendar has officially flipped and we're into New Year 2022. Welcome into our first episode. It's a fun one. And in tasting notes, we talk with Kevin Patterson about non-alcoholic beers. It is dry January for a lot of folks, so we'll get his take on what to expect with NA beers. And we cap it all off with CJ Cain of the Wooks for our conversation. It's a fun episode. You don't want to miss any of it. And I hope you all are having a great start to the new year. We got a lot of great episodes for you coming up. Don't forget to also check out our Q&A video cast. Go to hopspirits.com or check us out on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to check that out, where we talk to people in Kentucky and beyond, food, art, drinks, and so much more. Let's get to the episode.
It's almost time. Where did I put those? Here they are. It's time for tasting notes.
Once again, joining us is Kevin Patterson. You've heard him talk about beer, pretty much beer and a lot more beer. He's back again. He's a Cicerone National Beer Judge. He's also the manager of the Beer Trap Craft Beer Store and Bar in Lexington, Kentucky. Welcome into another edition of Tasting Notes.
Well, thanks, Jonathan. It's good to be here once again. Yeah, if you like beer, then this section of the podcast is a fantastic section. If you don't like beer, then this is a terrible section of the podcast.
Well, and if you're looking for maybe something that is non-traditional, this is great too, because, you know, obviously there are certain times of the year folks like to maybe cut back on things, you know, sober October, dry January, and that's kind of where we're at now. But people still want to maybe have a beer, but they don't want to, you know, maybe intake as many calories. And in recent years, while the category has been around forever, non-alcoholic craft beer is becoming a big business. I mean, it's still not overtaking, you know, anything, but it is grabbing a lot more dollars. What have you seen with the non-alcoholic beer trend?
Yeah, there's a lot of options out there. And as craft beer has expanded, it's gotten better. I mean, the last 12, 13 years in beer has really developed. The science of beer has really propelled it forward quite a bit. And it just doesn't happen whenever it comes to hops, barley, yeast, and water. It comes with the non-alcoholic stuff too. Used to be, if you wanted a non-alcoholic beer, it basically all those beer ingredients combined to make some sort of barley tea, and they would leave it at that. They carbonate it and put it out to market, and those weren't very good. They just taste like unfermented beer. Excuse me. And it was largely unpleasant. People just didn't like it. You know, to keep it from tasting so sickly sweet, they would dilute with water, add more carbonation, and it didn't gain any favor. And if a person just didn't, if they were out drinking and they didn't want an alcoholic beer, they would just get a tea. They would just get a soda. They would just get something else. Let's just get a water. But those days are kind of behind us. Now there's a whole class of beers that have learned to basically remove the alcohol from the beer post-fermentation, and without disturbing in the more delicate natures of the beer within. I know Athletic Brewing Company is probably leading the way at our store, and they have a series of beers, especially the IPAs, that taste just as legitimate IPAs as a lot of other breweries we have that makes standard alcoholic IPAs. These just don't have alcohol in them. Sometimes you get that little bit of an evaporative cooling in the back of the throat that alcohol gives you. Maybe you're missing that. But with that hop characteristic on the back of the throat, it's easy to just kind of overlook, well, maybe I don't need that evaporative feel. Maybe I'm okay with just the hop bitterness there. So I think the IPAs have done real well. I'm really impressed with what they have done. Some of the Belgian styles coming out, they're non-alcoholics, actually kind of cool too. It's kind of fun to see that. And I'm glad that people who don't prefer alcohol in their beer actually have some options right now that are not terrible options. They're actually good options. People come in for a wide range of reasons. Obviously, if a guy comes in, he loves the beer trap and he brings his wife with him, well, eventually they're going to, you know, probably do things adults do and make a baby. And so while they're baking and baking, you know, mom just doesn't want to sit at home, wait on husband to come home. He'll never come home. So she has to be right by his side. He can come home. Well, she's okay coming into the store like ours and asking for a non-alcoholic option. And I have some options to give them. I say, you can have these flavors, not just this one terrible beer. And I have these options. And they're all pretty good. Just depends on what kind of flavor you like. So it's really going to be able to offer that. But that's not the only reason why people choose non-alcoholic. Health reasons, maybe, been out on a little bit of a bender and you just like, look, I just can't do alcohol one more day, but your friends want to go out. So you go out with them and you have one of those. Or what we're seeing, most of our non-alcoholic beers will sell under this premise. When a guy's at a bar and he's had 2 or 3 beers and he's going to drive home. Yeah, he has his car out. He wants to drive home, but he doesn't want another beer. But he doesn't want to leave the conversation either. So, he him and his buddies, they're solving the cosmos. They've tackled world peace. They've tackled cancer. They've tackled politics. They've tackled it all. They've fixed every problem in the world. They're almost finished, with cosmos. And you can't leave that conversation now. Mm-mm. And there's no way you can solve that conversation on the sidewalk. You got to do it on the bar stool. And so what do? You can't do it with an empty glass. So you go and get non-alcoholic beer and it's kind of round out your night. So that's a very common way that people choose these options as well. So it's a very personalized set of reasons. And, I don't have to know all the reasons. I'm just glad that we can offer something that's common to the beer world that does suit their needs.
Well, and I think too, it's great to see it. One, they also are kind of at an advantage over a lot of other places because they can ship, they can do things a little different that others can't. But I will say this, and tell me what your thoughts are, because I've had a lot of non-alcoholic beverages. If at first you're expecting the exact same thing, even though they taste a lot better, that's not always the case. But as you get a little more into them, then you appreciate the flavors that are there. But if you're expecting it, I feel like right off the bat, you might be a little disappointed that it's not, an apples to apples comparison, maybe apples to oranges.
Yeah, the probably most popular beers we're selling right now is the Topping Goliath IPAs. You can't come in and expect non-alcoholic beer to taste just as good as that Topping Goliath beer. It's just not going to be quite the same. But will there be enough flavors that are common, that's well balanced, that's brewed correctly? Yes, you can expect that. So I guess if you're comparing the non-alcoholic varieties to the top tier beers on the market, they may not compare favorably. However, when you compare them to where non-alcoholic beers were even 5 years ago, it's a vastly different game.
Well, and like you said a little bit earlier, there's sours, there's lagers, there's pilsners, there's a breakfast stout, there's an oatmeal stout, there are variations of IPAs, which, like you said, years ago you had Bud Zero or whatever, and it was not great. Now you actually have a variety of flavors, which that goes back to the brewers to be able to pull those off and do it well too.
Yeah, they're stepping up to the challenge. They see that as something that's traditionally been seen as impossible. And they like, no, we can do this. And it's really kind of cool that they've given attention to that. They're doing it with gluten-free beers. They're doing kombuchas. There's a lot of different things that brewers can do in the brew house other than make a traditional alcoholic beer. So it's kind of fun to see what they come up with.
Well, and it's always fun to see you, Kevin, and to have a good chat. And I appreciate it as always.
I enjoyed it as well, Jonathan. I'm happy to do it anytime.
Remember to check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hop Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopspirits.com.
Joining us here on the Bar Conversations is CJ Cain, guitar, and a little bit of the vocals, as all the members of the band do for the Wooks. CJ, welcome in.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good. Now, we're Bar Conversations, so, before we hit the record button, I said, grab yourself a drink. Did you get anything good?
Well, right now, if you can find anything, it's good as far as bourbon goes. I kind of, that's a sensitive topic for me, but I got some Buffalo Trace. My wife usually keeps at least a couple bottles. We're not collectors. We kind of have a hard time just letting it sit in the closet. But
hey, nothing wrong with that. That's the best way. Open it and enjoy it.
The whole run and the whole collecting of bourbon has caused me to branch out as a human being. So that's the silver lining for not being able to find your favorites these days.
I can understand that. I'm one that likes to kind of try different things. I got some. Have you had Castle and Keys Restoration Rye yet?
I may have tried a little bit at a function of some sort, but I haven't had the full experience. I don't think.
No, I'm hoping to get out there at some point because I hear it's beautiful, but I enjoy getting to try a few things when I can because I'm kind of like you. I don't want to chase the bottles. I want to open them, enjoy them with friends, and like you said, just enjoy them. It's a lot more fun to enjoy them.
I mean, I've started. I used to really not gin, like gin and tonics, things like that. But my brother-in-law has this cocktail company called Jack Rudy. It's like tonic. They make all kinds of mixers, but the bread and butter is the handcrafted tonic. And I finally realized it wasn't the gin I didn't like. It was like the mediocre tonic. And once I tried theirs, so I've gotten into gin and tonics. I've tried some scotch and just tried to branch out because all through college, I mean, I almost drank bourbon exclusively. And my dad was like, "Man, it ain't the greatest drink to sit by the pool in the summertime, but
No.
with all the collecting and it being so scarce, I've just kind of gotten a little disenchanted with it and just tried some new cocktails and new things. And we got some great bars here in Lexington to choose from and get a good cocktail. So there's a lot more out there, but bourbon's still my kind of go-to. I have to admit.
Hey, there's nothing wrong. I remember, because I've lived now in Lexington. Oh man, it's 6-7 years. When I first got here, man, Buffalo Trace took up 4 shelves. A big. Now you're just hoping someone goes, "Hey, I got some in for 2 days."
Yeah, Elmer Tea.
Does sell out.
Elmer Tea was my favorite thing. My dad knew some of his family, and you could get it for $27, and I never thought twice about it. And it just was kind of, that's what we always had around. And then next thing you know, it's gone. And Dad and I tracked down I think we had 14 bottles that we ran around town buying in some craze, and we were we're going to save these. And they made it from I think 2 months. Every time somebody came over, it was let's get one out, and so he's still trying to collect, but I gave up on it. I just get whatever I can find and go with it.
I was gonna say there's plenty of good ones. I'm doing this podcast. I've found that I'm like you. If you do gin and some of the other ones great in a cocktail, they're pretty flavorful, and you get a whole lot more variety than what you might expect. And having the cocktail thing in the family, it's oh, I'll try that, at whatever, holiday or whatever. And next thing you know, it's I'm cultured now. I don't just drink bourbon. See what happens when you guys go on tour. You come back a totally different.
Absolutely. Touring is good for food, learning about different food and drinks, and music's good for you, especially traveling. Traveling in general is good for you.
Yes, it is. And we're here to talk. You guys have a new album coming out. Got a lot of cool things coming up here this year. So for those that may not know about the Wooks, how would you describe your style, the music style? Because I've heard a few different ways from when you're reading up about it, but how would you guys describe it?
For me, I would describe it all of us are deeply rooted in bluegrass music, traditional bluegrass, particularly that 70. For me, it's we all are influenced by the old school bluegrass, but particularly the music that was going on around here in the 70s, bluegrass wise, J.D. Crowe in the New South was based out of Kentucky, and kind of had Tony Rice, Ricky Skaggs, all these guys. Sam Bush lived in the Kentucky area during that time. That whole generation is really the kind of the backbone for most of all of our musical aspirations, really. And then from there, from that like bluegrass base, we all kind of have some different influences outside of that. I'm really influenced by the band and Southern rock, Allman Brothers, Skinner, singer-songwriters, John Prine, Guy Clark. A banjo player, like he's been to a lot of Fish shows, and Jerry Garcia knows a lot about that style of music, and we all kind of bring all those things together, and they're all sort of related enough, that it works. Mixing the jamming kind of with the songwriting is kind of the easiest way to describe the band, our band.
Well, and how did you guys come up with the name? Because I feel like that just seems interesting to me.
Well, there's not really a great answer, because I guarantee you if you ask anyone who's ever played in this band, you'd get like either a bunch of stammering around or just kind of a shot in the dark answer. So I'll let you in on this. I won't do it to you because you're a cool guy, but
I appreciate that.
But lately, we've just kind of like just randomly, like when people ask us, it's like, oh, well, Harry's uncle was an extra on The Empire Strikes Back, so that's where we got the name. And then we were in, like, D.C., and this cat was like, so the Wooks, that's interesting. Is that, like, a family name? And like, without skipping a beat, somebody in the band was like, yeah, that was CJ's great-grandmother's name, last name, but she pronounced it Wook. But we changed it a little bit. So, and it's been a lot more fun that way, because the truth of the matter is the fans usually have some kind of Star Wars idea, some kind of like a Sasquatch interpretation, and then there's like the hippie interpretation, like the West Colorado hippie music fan. And honestly, like, you don't really want to take it away from anybody, whatever it is that it means to them. And honestly, like, it's kind of, at this point, it is all of those things, I did have a friend say, though, this was like Wook philosophy. He was like, without Chewbacca, there could be no Wooks, because all of the other connotations, like, come about because of that. And I was like, that's pretty heavy, man.
I like that. I mean, it's open to interpretation. It's whatever it means to whomever, and I kind of like that, because sometimes you really something sticks and you don't really know how it came to be, and
yeah, I mean, we all honestly from the get go, like, I think it all meant something different to each one of us, and it still does to whoever's a part of the band, and so it's kind of a difficult question to answer.
So it's a little more fun to actually have some fun with it then.
I mean, you can't take one of my favorite things about the name is, like, no one ever really asks me twice what band I'm in. They usually remember it, and it has this broad thing, like, people like it or hate it and love it because they hate it. Whatever they come up with, there's so many different angles that people come up with. I'm like, yeah, man, like, that's great. Like, it's like a song, you don't, whatever interpretation you get from a song that means something to you, like, that is what it is, You're not wrong, I one time messaged a songwriter, I was like, I thought I just knew what this song was about, and I loved the tune. And I quickly realized I was, like, not even close. It was funny, but I realized then it's like, it's best just to let people, do their thing.
Yeah, let it have its own life, own mystique to it. Now, you guys have been going at this for a little while, but what got you into music and being, playing guitar and things like that?
Well, my mom was like really into like ZZ Top and Stevie Ray Vaughan and that whole thing, and really a little more rock and roll and blues. And Dad, um, is kind of, he got into bluegrass through the like Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia, and then got into like Keith Whitley, J.D. Crowe, and that whole scene. So I like, they're not professional musicians, but like they've been going to shows and like um,
They've
different
had a love of
tastes.
music.
But yeah, and so I was around like some cool stuff growing up, and then eventually, I forget, I was probably 12 or 13, man. I just got into like Stevie Ray Vaughan big time, and got an electric guitar and kind of, I got all right at it, but I kind of hit this place where I sort of plateaued and sat it down for like a year or so. And then Dad took me to a bluegrass festival, and I bought like a Tony Rice record. And once I heard Tony, it like totally like fired me back up about wanting to play guitar. And inevitably, like, you get so entranced and like moved by somebody's music that you want to, like, a lot of times not necessarily be like them, but like you're like, I want to connect with people that way. And like sometimes I'm like, I don't know whether to like, hug my heroes or kick their ass, because this like job is not easy.
Yeah.
And they kind of got me into this, but it's interesting how musicians can have that effect, really.
I was gonna say, you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but, with whether it was your parents or some of the influences that kind of made the band. I mean, are those most of the people that influenced you growing up in terms of your love of music?
Well, I mean, the list of influences I have now, like,
I mean, was there any hip hop in there?
Yeah, I mean, I was getting ready to say, I haven't always, like, I've had times, where I'm listening to, like, in high school, where I listened to, like, what was cool. And then, like I was telling my sister about Nas and how he's, like, quite possibly the greatest rapper of all time. And she's in her early 20s, and she was like, what are you talking about, realizing that hip hop that I liked is now like vintage,
Yeah, we're old school hip hop.
I mean, everybody knows about, like, all the kids know about Tupac, but there's so many things. Like, there's this guy that played football at Henry Clay that told me about this group, Do or Die. It was like the group that like Twista like launched out of, And I mean, I had that phase, and sometimes I put that stuff on, and it's really cool because, just the other day I put on a Destiny's Child song in the van on tour, and I was like, listen to this bass, like, because so much of music that's popularized now is like not a band in the studio, but these guys were like killing it, and it's kind of funny, like, you can kind of write some things off sometimes or just kind of forget about it, but like, there's kind of something to be learned from every style of music. If it's good, it's good,
And that's absolutely true. I mean, I think about like Dr. Dre bringing in like full-fledged band, like, orchestra type things.
I mean, what about Outkast? I mean, that's some of the most musical. Like, those guys can play, The bands that they put behind them are incredible.
Now, you guys do have a new album coming out in February, Flyin High. You guys just kind of released that out along with the debut single. What are you excited about, and what are folks going to be excited about on this new album?
I mean,
are you going to have any Destiny Child influences on there?
No, I did try to write like a tune that had kind of a Jerry, like, Fish vibe, because that's kind of, Fish is kind of new to me. I'm kind of like late to the table there. When I first started hearing about Fish, I got it like through a bad lens because kids would hear that I played bluegrass and be immediately like, "Hey man, do you like Fish?" And then I'd listen to Fish and I'd try to be listened to it like it's a bluegrass band, like it's being presented to me by people that I knew, and I'm like, what are they talking about? But they did that Baker's Dozen deal, and I listened to it like while driving on tour, and it was broadcasted over Sirius XM, and that like really kind of got me hooked. I'm not like, I don't know all the songs and all the ins and outs, but like I have this like respect for it that I probably didn't really understand it in high school and college. That being said, the tune still kind of sounds like an Allman Brothers rip-off a little bit, or Southern rock thing, but there is some new like influences, at least for my writing. But it still kind of like goes with what the Wooks has always kind of been about, which is like just writing good songs and things that people can connect to. Like Flyin High, like those are real people in that song, and some of my dad's good friends, and like some of the coolest people I've ever known. Like, and I think it's cool to like put them in that their story, because then it kind of can live forever somewhere, on a hard drive somewhere. That's kind of cool. And all the guys are writing on the Harry and George both wrote some killer tunes on it, and just writing songs is kind of a cornerstone of what we're trying to do.
Well, it seemed too like you wanted, with this album, you guys kind of took a different approach. Like you wanted a little more, I guess maybe raw live feel to it. What kind of drew you to that type of sound on this album? Because I've got to listen to it, and it sounds really good. But you can kind of tell. I feel like that difference of probably what you're going to hear on it is what you're going to hear when you guys hit the stage.
I mean, from my perspective, I'm like a little bit farther down the road in my career where I was, a little like early on when you cut a record, you're like so self-conscious and you like want to fix everything, like you take a solo and you're like, I can do better than that. And you go back in there and you take a few more passes, like it's called overdubbing, and there's nothing wrong with that. Hell, I mean, I bet you there's a lot of overdubs on some really great records from, back when everyone was cutting on tape. And there's like a time and place for that, but I've never really, this record has like so many more solos from me that are just exactly how they happen in the moment, without like maybe pasting two different ones together, things like that. That was just kind of a product. Some of that is the fact that I'm like, okay, like I'm not as in my head in the studio as I was when I was younger. And then also, we don't have like a click track that we're like playing along to. The guy that engineered is this cat named Jake Stargell, and he's like one of the best guitar players probably to ever live in bluegrass. He's young. He's a little bit younger than me. I'm 36. But he's just kind of like really got this gift for recording, and that's what he's really pursued more than his live performing lately. And he really just kind of knows how to allow us to play that way. We take 3 or 4 passes of a song, and then it's all like live with no click track. And then, man, sometimes there's like maybe the first half of one take and the second half, but it's all live in that context. It's not like playing it. You go in there overdubbing this thing until you get it perfect. And that's kind of like, from what I understand, how like Bela did like the Drive album, and Tony Rice did a lot of the Bluegrass album band, and just our favorite records. They might be spliced up, the takes a little bit, but a lot of times everything isn't like perfect. So it's like, why not try to do it that way? If those are the records that make you want to play music, maybe I'm not saying that we accomplished getting it to sound that good, but like that was our goal. That was the inspiration for this style of recording.
Well, like I said, getting to listen to it a little bit. You can tell. I don't know. There's just something about it. I mean, because it's, I don't know, something raw, authentic to it, and that's kind of cool to hear. And how does that differ from the first two? Is that just because the first two you're
well, there's some of that in the first two records, but really what it is like we most of the time we've recorded like it's kind of the arrangement isn't really set in stone yet. Like we get there and like our first album, Allison Brown produced it from. She's like a super famous producer and banjo player. So we had these tunes. We knew the chords, we knew the words, but we sat down with her and then worked them over with this arrangement, right? That you ain't ever played it like that before, and then you go in there and cut it. So obviously you're not going to like really nail everything. So you might have to fix some stuff because it's a brand new thing. With this album, like we produced it. So what we did was we went to a cabin on Cherokee Lake in Tennessee, and worked on the tunes for like a week. And we never have done that before. So when we got to the studio, we were able to play a little more live because we weren't overhauling a lot of stuff. There is one song on there, I think Black and White, and we had no arrangement for that one, and we kind of just played it off of the top, like just started playing and kind of see what happens kind of thing. And I was kind of proud of that too, because that would have freaked me out like 10 years ago. But it was kind of nice. We were producing ourselves. We were recording with our friend at the computer in his like house. It's kind of like a college house in Nashville. Might be like a dirty sock on the floor and shitty beer in the fridge, and there's such low stress in that environment. But he's also getting this like good tone. Just because we're not in like a fancy studio, it sounded good and felt good. So it was kind of a different experience from all those factors, really.
I was gonna say, it sounds like it was a fun experience too, and something that shows through on the record. You talked a little bit about writing. You pulled from Flyin High, talking about some people that people know in your past and so forth, or are friends of the family. What's it like coming up with stuff like that and pulling from experiences, or just even coming up with some fun ideas to base a song off of?
Yeah, I feel like on the record there's like every kind of song. Like George has this song that he wrote. It sounds like it was written by like somebody who's like 80 years old. It's like I don't know how. It's like he had a time machine or something. And then Harry's got one that's kind of like a little while. It's kind of like a bunch of childhood growing up imagery that's killer. And then I've got other sides with sort of an abstract kind of tune, and so they're all kind of different. But like the real life stories are easy. Like, I mean, if you like care about something enough to write about it, then the story's already really there. You just got to kind of figure out how to get it in time and all that. Like I knew I wanted to write a song with Jim Bob and Pam Bob, actually. She goes by it. She says that she took both of his names, but and Chubb and Rose, like those are cool people. So I was like, I want to have them in a song one day. So like, it's really cool to kind of get to see their reaction to it. But the real eye-opening thing for me, like Tyler Childers is a big influence of mine. And I would have never really had the bravery to write about like somebody just specifically known by me without really having heard his songs, because I would have thought at an early age, like, oh, you might not understand that because you don't know Pam and Jim Bob, or, you know, whoever it's inspired by. But Tyler, like, had tunes where he would, like, you know, his best buddy's, like, grandma, you know, and he would even say his best buddy's name in the song, Cody, you know, and I would have been like, yeah, nobody's going to get that. Everybody's going to say, who the hell is Cody? But, like, you go to Red Rocks and you see all those thousands of people, you know, singing that song. And it's not really been on a record either. Like, people have learned that song, Virgie, on their own accord. So it's like, man, like, you can write about your people, you know.
It's relatable.
It's really, like, I mean, he has a lot of genius things going on, but that's something that, like, I really was, like, knocked down by. I was like, man, everybody, there's this sports show I listen to all the time, like Kentucky Sports Show, and, like, this guy talks about on there, like, that everybody's interesting. Like, there's something about everyone that's interesting. You just gotta, like, figure it out, what it is. Because they might not tell you, they might think what's interesting about themselves. It's like, no, that ain't it. Like, and if you talk to them long enough, you can figure out. And that's true. Like, there's a song in anybody you meet, really. But I hate to tell everybody that, because then nobody will, like, want to talk to me anymore.
They might be worried you're going to write something about them, but, you know, hey, it's all good stuff. It's nice things, and it's fun to share those and have those. You know, now someone maybe 50 years from now is going to know the story of Jim Bob and Pam Bob, and it's so cool to see that. And, you know, you guys have been doing this for a while now. I mean, started back not super long, but 2014. It's how's that journey been for y'all?
I mean, yeah, it's like, it seems like not that long ago, but I mean, for me, I started playing on the road, I guess, like 2006, 2007, probably. It's kind of a blur, you know. Being a musician for a living, sorry, my dog is, like, really excited about something right now.
It's A-okay.
But it has, I mean, any job has ups and downs, but, like, being a musician is tough sometimes. I mean, sometimes you're really working hard to get just to the place where you gotta work. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's, like, that term you hear people talk about, like, being, you know, getting a real job versus being a musician. It's like, man, I don't know anybody with a real job that could cut it, like, you know, get in a van and ride, like, 9 hours, you know, and play, you know, set your stuff up, play a couple hours, you know, and then do that over and over again for, like, 2 weeks straight. And then, also, sometimes you're not going to be certain what you're going to make. Like, it'll be what it will be at the door, you know. It's like, who's signing up for that? You know. So, yeah, it's tough. The pandemic's been tough, obviously. But the coolest thing, like, I find that you either have a tough day or an awesome day. It's never, like, you never play a show and you're like, that was all right. You know, it was either a tough day or it was a great day. And there's not much in between. And it's cool, like, the coolest feeling, like I mentioned Tyler, like, I can remember vividly, like, I played a duo show with him the first time that I heard people sing along to somebody's song that, like, I knew. You know, it wasn't somebody famous yet. And I was like, whoa. They know the words to this. And that was, like, the coolest feeling in the world. And it was probably, like, 3 or 4 months after that I experienced that in my own show with the Wooks. And, like, that's the coolest feeling in the world. Like somebody, you write this song that you're like, I wonder if anybody's gonna give a damn about, and then you hear them like sing it back to you, like they took the time to like listen to it that many times. That's like the it's the best. I mean, you know, better than any GI Joe at Christmas that you ever wanted. You know.
See, I will never get to experience that. I cannot carry a tune, but I can drink and have good conversation.
Yeah, but you might be able to write a song though. Just because you can't sing doesn't mean you can't write a song.
There might be hope for me still. now, you talk about being on stage and stuff like that. You guys are obviously going on tour for the new album. What can folks expect to see when you guys are able to get out there again?
We like to play, the lyrics are focused, but like in the live show, we really like to stretch stuff out and, play, the extended solos from time to time, and just off the cuff is I feel like we're most comfortable not really knowing what is going to happen, and that's when I'm most comfortable anyway. Like when I have to like kick a song off the same way to like every time, that's the most terrifying part of playing for me. It's like, am I going to remember? But that's just kind of the style of our live shows. There's a lot of jamming, improvisational stuff, but like I said, again, within this context of like the lyrics and the songwriting being kind of a focus.
And then when I was getting ready to do the interview, I threw up a thing that I was going to talk to y'all, and someone wanted to know what's maybe the favorite place you've gotten to play, or at least gotten to go and just kind of enjoy with being on tour and so forth.
For one, I got personally, and I can't like answer this for everybody, but most of my favorites are probably going to be some of their favorites too. But we did a tour with the String Dusters, which is a hugely influential band in my bluegrass like upbringing. They were still good friends of mine, and very like, sometimes like the music business, like people, it's not that they're unfriendly, but like when you're new and you're young, you feel like, the door is kind of closed to you. And they were up and coming, and like the door was always open. And so to get to go on the tour with them, after them kind of being a influence of like, hey, I want to be like those dudes and be a musician, that was pretty cool. We played some good venues, but it was more so about like cool to be on the road with them. One of my favorite spots I ever played was this place, John T. Floors in Helotes, Texas. We opened for Tyler. It was the craziest thing, like, probably 3,000-4,000 people. That was a lot for me at the time, and still it really is for a bluegrass band, Mm-hmm. But the weirdest thing was I walked out like to go to the merch table, like in bluegrass, you get done with your show and you go out there to the table and you say hello. It seems ridiculous to like, I don't know, probably like a hip hop artist or something, but that's just what you do, and it's cool. Like I kind of like knowing the people that are coming to the shows. And I walk out there and I'm like, I immediately go back into the green room. I'm like, dude, somebody's got to go out there with me. I can't tell which way is which, and it was just overwhelming. Like people slapping you on the back and just like wading through this crowd. And Texas is like intense, man. People love music there. And like as we were walking to the record table, it was like people were cheering like a sports thing, like a sports situation as we moved through the crowd. And that seems like goofy, but like, for me, bluegrass bands growing up, like it's like my favorite form of music, but it's not always like that, and to see people cheering and getting riled up about that style of music. And I don't know if you're familiar with Billy Strings, but he's really showing like what fans are capable. Like, people can get in that state over bluegrass music. It's just, I think when I was younger, you go to bluegrass festivals, like everybody's sitting in a lawn chair, and you got some people that might clap every once in a while. You got some people that dance, but it's not like, this waylay, but it can be. And bands like Leftover Salmon kind of showed that earlier on too. It's not just Billy and String Dusters and those guys, but it was cool. Like, the Hello Taste gig is like where like Willie Nelson like lived in that green room, and Robert Earl Keen like cut his famous live album. So it just had all kinds of cool factor going on simultaneously, and we're there with our friends. And Rocky Grass is a big one for me. I don't know if you've ever heard of that festival. That's the festival I kind of grew up going to. That was like I never had an iced coffee till I went to Rocky Grass, or a steamed dumpling. That was probably the first time I went like west of the Mississippi was to go to Rocky Grass. So, and I met so many people there from all over the world that, just like I was talking about the culture thing, like, I met a group of people from San Francisco that I would then go visit at like 16, 17 years old, and like, I was like, there's more ways than one to cook a frog leg. I learned that in San Francisco.
I love it. Well, it's memories. It's making memories, making stuff that will stick with you forever, and those are so cool to see, kind of the moments that come about from that. Here in Lexington, you guys do a show pretty much every Halloween, Wookaween. What's it like putting that on and having some fun with friends?
Well, my favorite thing about that show is like the name has now settled into this thing that really works. But when somebody first presented it, I was like, that sounds weird. So I'm just happy that it's like,
now it just rolls
worked.
off the tongue.
Yeah, it works.
It just rolls off.
At first, I was like, see, it was like a good example. It's like, you're not always right. At first I was like, we can do better. I don't know about that name, but it's I thought about that. Like, I saw that someone else brought that up, and I was like, we have done that pretty much almost every year. And it really just started out of nowhere. I think the first one had us and Town Mountain and my former band that I was in, Newtown, that's fronted by a great Kentucky musician by the name of Katie Penn. She plays with a group. I played with Katie for like 10 years before the Wooks, and she's in a group called Grasstown now. And, Wookaween's fun, because obviously you dress up, and it's kind of fun to go out there, like, on stage, like, dressed as someone else. It's like the one day out of the year you get to do that. In fact, like this year, we kind of dressed as the opening band, which was Laid Back Country Picker. I don't know if you've checked him out, but
did you have the facial hair?
Well, what we did was we didn't like look just like him. Technically, we dressed as though we were a part of. We were trying to. The bit was we were trying to get Laid Back to hire us as his bluegrass band, and we were the Mississippi River Rats. Was the name of the band. The Wooks broke down, couldn't make it, and we were the River Rats, and we were there to audition for Laid Back, who opened for us. And every year it's like everybody's scrambling. Not every year we're like, let's get the costume together in like July, and inevitably it's like 2 days before it, and we're still like freaking out. We have everybody's missing something, and that's my goal, is eventually have the Halloween costume like before the week of the show.
You might need to start now.
I know.
Start planning now.
I know.
Plan now all year.
It's ridiculous. Like, It's like I'm more likely to do my taxes early than to get that costume together.
It happens, and you know when you think back on all this, did you ever expect you to be playing music for a living and being able to go on tour and meet people and just have this, cool experience?
Dude, I didn't even know, like, the coolest thing for me is, like, I'm, like, friends with my guitar teacher now, and we've written songs like, we wrote a song for the new record. Butler Hayes was co-written I wrote that with a childhood guitar teacher of mine who's, like, now my friend. You know, when I was a kid, I was just like, I just wanted Eric to, like, not hate me. You know, I'd go in the store and, like, play every guitar in the store and buy, like, a guitar pick and walk out, you know. There's another co-write on the album, Mudfish Mama, that I wrote with this guy, Ray Smith, who his group of musicians, like, I'm, like, obsessed with the band and Levon Helm and the whole 9 yards. I've read the book, and that really started from, obviously I didn't get to see the band. I'm not old enough. But I saw at the Dame, the original Dame, I saw the Last Waltz, like, recreation that Ray put together with a guy named J.T. Cure that plays with Chris Stapleton, who produced our Glory Bound record. And then Jesse Wells, who was our original fiddle player, who plays with Tyler Childers now, a guy named Tim Welsh. Basically, they put a group of musicians together and reenacted the Last Waltz, and I saw that at, like, college age, And I go home and I, like, listen to the band, like, obsessively for, like, the next, 5 years. So, like, I didn't know Ray, but eventually I kind of got good enough at the guitar where he was like, let's play a duo show or something at the Mexican restaurant or whatever. And next thing you know, we, like, write a song, and, like, now it's going to be on a record. And I look back and I'm like, man, I'm just like, I didn't know I was even going to be friends with these people, let alone, like, be in a band or work with them. It's that's cool to me, I didn't get to, like, hang out with, like, Prine or Guy Clark, but I mean, I've got to like, be around some pretty cool guys, like, in my local scene, like, there's this guy from Lexington that I tell people all the time. I, like, show people his Instagram stuff that I grew up around, that's played with us, like, filled in with us and stuff. His name's Brandon Bowles, and he plays, his main instrument is probably electric guitar, but he plays banjo too, and bass, everything. But he's just, like, good at every, like, style of guitar. Like, he's reggae, country, he plays some bluegrass guitar, and the Jerry Garcia thing and the Southern rock thing. Never seen anything like it, and he might not be touring, but that's because, he took a different path and has a job and family, and but he could, he's, and it's, being around people like that in your local scene is just as cool as anything, really.
Oh, absolutely! Getting to just play with anyone that has a love of this type, any music is, to me, would be fun. It's just, just something that, you can't really put a price on or anything like that. And before we kind of get to my last question, I know y'all are ambassadors for, is it Canned Aid?
Canned Aid, yeah.
Well, why is that something that's important to y'all and something that you guys do?
Well, the coolest thing, so what the Canned Aid has a lot of things going on. Like, they have some disaster relief kind of deals that they do. But what we do with them is called Tunes Ambassadors. And, like, basically they go out and purchase a bunch of instruments tailored to, like, the needs of the school that we're going to go to and donate the instruments. And basically we go in and do, like, a performance, answer questions, talk about bluegrass, talk about instruments in general and music, and the kids get access to like some quality instruments to learn on. A lot of times it's like they use the term at risk. It's a lot of times it's kids that are not going to get access to a quality instrument more than likely without the help of Candade. And man, it's pretty cool. Like we've done donations in the middle of Eastern Kentucky, and we've done them in Brooklyn. And it's like hilarious to like be playing like this bluegrass instrumental in like Brooklyn, and kids are like, I don't keep up with the dance moves, but there's always a new dance. You know, I don't know if you've noticed that. It's like, and to see them jump up, and it's like clinch mountain backstep, but they're doing like whatever the move is of the week, and like just getting down, you know. And that's awesome, you know. And a friend of ours that was in a band. He's in a band called Songs from the Road band now. Charles Humphreys. That's who got me connected with Candade. But Candade kind of, everybody that works there is the coolest people in the world, and we kind of needed a charity to kind of focus our efforts towards, because if you don't, like, as a band, you get contacted like all the time, like, let's do this, let's do that, and like you can like kind of spread yourself thin, and your charitable efforts kind of get diluted because you're not able to like focus. So like having something that we are doing and focus on like charity wise makes it easier and more effective for us. I mean, not that we don't get involved in other stuff, but that's been kind of nice to have this thing that we're kind of attached to.
Well, and then just to get to share your love of music and playing live instruments has got to be cool, because that's not something that, unfortunately, nowadays, you know, it's not like music class is always an option sometimes. So.
Kids ask the best questions, too. Like, you know, my favorites are like, how do y'all always get along, you know? It's like, you need to watch the Beatles documentary.
We never fight. It's all rainbows. Especially in a small van for 7 hours.
Whoever gets to clean the van after the tour's over, that's who you need to talk to.
Well, and as we wrap up our conversation, you know, we talked about it. You got a new album coming out. You're going on tour. What are you guys hoping for in 2022? Because I mean, obviously, you got a lot going on with the album and tour. I'm guessing you're hoping for a fun year and to be able to get out and see everyone.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I'd hope for like a year that's relatively smooth and safe for everyone. I mean, that's the bar is pretty low at this point as far as like. I thought about it the other day. It's like, man, we've had really 2 years, and one of the years like really weird, and the second one's like, I mean, even last year was not normal, you know. It would be nice to just, you know, be able to play, but you gotta do it right and safely and all that. But hopefully we'll have a good smooth year, and just get in front of more people and have make more friends, you know, like and fans. We have some of the best fans. You know, I'm almost like friends with a good deal of them. That's our music scene in Kentucky is just with Chris and Tyler and Sturgill and these guys, like, it's really thriving, and the fans, it's like a part of their, it's like almost like the country version or the folk version of the Grateful Dead. Like, these people are making the music a part of their lifestyle. Mm-hmm. You know, getting in the van and going carpooling to shows. And just like trying to build on that and you know, on more of a national level is going to be nice to get out and just meet new people and spread the music around.
Well, folks, they've got a new album coming out in February. You got to check them out, and if you haven't yet, I highly recommend it. Spotify, Pandora, whatever it is, look them up. The Wooks, they're a lot of fun, a lot of great music, and check them out on tour too. CJ, this has been a blast, and we'll have to do it again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Anytime. I really enjoyed it, and if you snag any good bottles of bourbon, let me know, and I'll send you some Jack Rudy cocktail mixers.
Hey, we might just have to get together. We're in the same town.
Yeah. We probably could have done this without all the technology, but this is kind of cool. It's like James Bond stuff. So.
From undisclosed locations.
All right, man.
I appreciate it, CJ.
Take care, dude.